It's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parashat Ekev, standing before God. We have the image of standing before God in Bereshit, when Avraham stands before God. We have the image right here, that God chose the Levites to carry the ark, perhaps, La'amod lifnei Hashem, to stand before God, Lisharto, to service Him, Ulevarech Lishmo, and to bless in His name, Ad Hayom Hazeh, to this very day. From here, the rabbis derive, Rashi mentions it, that La'amod and Varech Lishmo, it says to stand and to give the blessing. Priestly blessings must be done ba'amida. We do the priestly blessings ba'amida. But it's not only that, but since it speaks about standing before God for service, and in the Beis Hamikdash always you stood, where only the king sat. So too, when we do the avoda, the service of our daily prayers, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, Musaf, Nila, we stand. We always stand when we daven. The Torah mentions maybe it's Dugmas Korban. Maybe we do it because if you stand to serve God, like it says in our parsha, to Lisharto, to serve God in the temple, so too we should stand when we offer prayers, because prayers instead of sacrifices were done standing, prayers should be done standing as well. That's why we make many similarities between sacrifices and prayer. For instance, kavana, the notion of intent in prayer. As my son Asher pointed out to me, the kavana in sacrifices also, if you have bad kavana, if you're thinking, I think I'm going to eat this, I'll eat this for leftovers the next 2 weeks, then that's a pigul, it's a bad thought. Not allowed to have achshavas pigul, the bad thoughts when you bring sacrifices. So too, when you bring your prayers, you have to have the right thoughts. However, there's also another idea. The Magen Avraham mentions in Tzadi Daled Sivkot and Yud that in the name of the Hagos Mamanios, the footnotes on the Rambam, that a tam da'azur is why? You have to daven with great trepidation. How can you be davening trepidation when you're sitting around, you're lounging around, your legs crossed, you're leaning back in your chair? Trepidation requires standing up. So we have two ideas. Do we stand in prayer because we want to stand before God as we are in sacrifice, or is it in great fear? What difference does it make? Well, let's say you wanted to lean. So if we say that it's a sacrifice, we're standing, all right, so I'm still standing, I'm a little bit old, I'm a little tired, I have orthopedic problems, so I'm leaning a little bit. But if we say that it's in terms of ema, that fear before God, when you stand in front of the general, you have to stand at attention, you can't be leaning. So that might make a difference in terms of whether you could lean a little bit. The Mishnah Berurah seems to say you could lean a little bit. Maybe he's less concerned with the notion of fear. Good. The Rav Ezra Big points out that the Rambam has two expressions about standing before God. One is your omer b'fnei Shechina, you're standing in front of the divine presence. He wants to argue that when you're not only standing in front of the divine presence, but you become a receptacle for the divine presence when you daven. Just like Avraham was a receptacle for the divine presence, just like the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was a receptacle for divine presence. When I daven, I sort of invite the Shekhinah to be present with me, God to be present with me. I stand with Him. That's one expression of the Rambam. The other expression of the Rambam is that, you don't have to, but it's good to be dressed properly when you daven. Would you stand b'fnei gedolim? Would you stand in front of important people? Some people think you have to wear a hat to stand in front of important people. Some people think you should wear a jacket or a tie, stand in front of important people. But certainly don't stand in your pajamas to stand in front of God. So it should at least be the way you would stand in front of gedolim, in front of important people. So that's another idea. The Shekhinah idea, notice, is a more humble idea. The Shekhinah is, I'm standing here and I'm allowing the divine presence to be with me. It's a spiritual idea. The other is a more fearful idea that, how would I stand if it was a general here? How would I be dressed like that? If there was an important rabbi, a teacher, a financier, would I be dressed like this? So it's more of a fearful question. So again, in the Rambam's two expressions of how we stand before God also reflects this more loving, connected kind of thing. Since I'm so connected with God, I want to stand before Him. Or is it that I'm trying to impress the way I would stand in front of very important people? As Rabbi Bick puts it, is it that I need to fix myself so that I'm worthy of having God be with me? So I stand up at attention. Or is that I want to be seen klape chutz, my foreign affairs, my presentation outwardly, is it appropriate for standing before the king? So that's another question. Of course, in general, whom are we standing in front of? Are we standing in front of the king or in front of our friend? In front of the king or in front of our father? Avinu, Malkeinu. And of course, we have both. Sometimes we say ata, we say, hey, you. In some languages, German, you don't, in Yiddish, you don't say you. You say him. When you want to say you say him. Just if you're speaking to someone of authority. But here in Adam, we say Baruch Atah. We speak to God directly. And sometimes we recoil backwards, says our salvation, and we say, Asher baras hasom v'simcha. That we say that Mekabez nidchayim amo Yisrael. He gathers the troops. He hears prayers. We don't talk to him directly. So sometimes we have this dance, and that reflects the two elements of standing. Are we standing out of fear, in which case we draw back? Are we standing out of community, oneness with God? That's the other question. In other words, are we standing in honor of God or in unity with God? There's an idea that an angel stands, so maybe there's, of course, God has no feet, but maybe there's some idea that a spiritual being is standing, omdim. So we should be standing. We shouldn't be sitting. Sitting is very human. Think about where we sit, what we sit on. Is it in honor of God, or to have, on the contrary, not so much an honorific thing, more of a fatherly, brotherly friendship? When we have all these relationships with God, maybe that's what it's all about. It says in Leviticus, in the great promises of what would happen if we kept all the mitzvot, v'talachti b'tochechem, we would walk with God. Maybe as I stand before God, I'm not sort of, I better stand up, he's important, I'm going to stand in front of him. No, I'm walking with him, and somehow there's an image that God is standing with us. So we have then in the notion of standing before God, duality, a question of why is it that we stand before God? Are we standing in community with God, in union with God, as a merkava l'shechina, making ourselves a resting place for the presence of the Shekhinah, we are a tabernacle, we are a temple, and we are allowing and welcoming God within us? Or do I stand there in fear of the king? Of course, in the end, we know God is Avinu and Malkeinu. God is both our Father and our King. And that duality is expressed in that standing. Standing, sometimes we tremble before God, we shuckle as if, we're standing, but we're in great fear. Sometimes we stand still in union with God. We've made that union with God, ready to stand still with Him and unite with Him, be with Him. I believe that we should have both experiences. We have, as our salvation says, it's a dance. It's a shir hashirim dance. We need to both recognize how transcendent God is and how present God is in our own lives as well. We hope that when we stand in the Amidah, we're able to realize these two elements, and ultimately, we hope that we'll be able to welcome God into our lives. The ultimate blessing, that we're able to walk along together with God, not just out of a sense of fear, but also out of a sense of love. Avad Hashem Elohechem, lovdo b'chol vavchem v'chol nafshechem, as it says in our parsha, to love God with all of our heart and all of our soul. We thank you for joining us here at the Baron Hirsch Congregation for discussion of the parsha. Join us each week for a discussion of the various holidays. We want to thank our producer, Jason Lefkowitz, and don't forget, give us a little like, a thumbs up for the video as well. Helps spread the word. Thank you so much.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.